Cyberpunk, The Flame That Remains. Written and read by Ethan Taplin. Chapter 18, Jörmungandr, Night City, 2075. Liv rushed to meet them the moment Ares stepped onto the bridge, Sophie clinging to him with all her remaining strength. Her legs barely moved beneath her, each step a staggering effort. Her body wrecked from her dive into the net and the fight that preceded it. Her breath came shallow and ragged. "Here," she said, slipping under Sophie's opposite arm and taking her weight. "I've got you." Sophie tried to speak, but Liv silenced her with a glance. "You can talk after you sit." They brought her to the captain's chair. Mael was crouched by the wall behind it, one arm wrapped tight around his ribs. Astrid stood nearby, tending to a cut on her forearm with a bandage pulled from a first aid cabinet on the wall. "You're late," Mael rasped. Sophie gave the faintest smile. "Prosopon got clingy. Didn't like me trying to leave again." Liv dropped her pack beside the chair and pulled out what little remained of her supplies. "I did what I could for them," she said, nodding to Mael and Astrid. "You're next." "I'm fine," Sophie murmured, then hissed as she settled into the seat, lifting a hand to her scorched chip socket. "Sorry. No, I'm not." "No, you're not," Liv agreed, pulling off Sophie's yukata and unfastening the armor plates from the surface of her suit. "You don't have to put on a brave face for us, you know." Sophie winced as Liv peeled off the mesh of the ROM suit, exposing the swelling beneath, the aftermath of battle displayed across her entire upper body. A deep bruise ran across Sophie's shoulder where Sigrid had struck her. Another spanned her side, darker, angrier, where she'd been slammed into the bulkhead. The skin was hot to the touch, irritated by both impact and heat. Her cheekbone was swollen from a brutal strike to the face, and dried blood trailed from one nostril. The socket behind her ear was blackened and deformed, evidence that her neural interface had been damaged by a breach as well as a physical blow. "Herregud, Sophie," Liv muttered as she connected her personal link behind Sophie's other ear and examined her diagnostic report. "You're fried. Half your systems are cooked, not to mention you're probably bleeding internally." "I felt worse," Sophie said, trying for humor but barely finding her breath. "Whatever happened down there, it nearly cooked you." Liv applied a stabilizer patch to Sophie's neck and followed it with a pair of air hypo injections, pain control, then anti-inflammatory. She pressed a chilled medfoam strip across the bruising. "Looks like you barely made it out." Ares knelt beside Liv, his hand brushing Sophie's arm as she winced beneath the medfoam. He didn't speak at first, just hovered close, inspecting her injuries. "That's a pretty accurate assessment. We found 2 of your siblings down there," Ares said, handing Liv another strip of medfoam. "Rune and Sigrid," Sophie said, wincing as Liv meticulously checked her for broken bones. Ares exhaled slowly, his eyes moving from Sophie and Liv to Mael, then Astrid, as if weighing how much to give them straight and how much to leave unsaid. "Rune was the bigger problem," he said finally. "Sigrid was tough, but she was a brawler, and if she can't hit you, she can't hit you. Rune, though, he was in our heads the whole time, flooding my optics, spiking my reflex drivers, and keeping Sophie on the defensive. He was a menace with that blade of his, too. Every time I tried to help Sophie deal with Sigrid, he'd slip something past my defenses." He glanced down at Sophie, then back to the others. "Sigrid's actually the one who gave us the opening," he continued. "She grabbed Sophie and slammed her into the wall, holding her there instead of continuing the assault. I was able to put all my focus on Rune while she was shouting at me. I short-circuited his arms and gave Ares an opening." She dropped her gaze to the floor, then said, "Rune's dead." The room was silent for a moment. Then Mael asked, "And Sigrid?" "I'm not sure," Sophie said. "She had a berserk implant. Activated it the moment Rune went down. I thought I'd be joining him in a moment, but Sophie..." "You used it, didn't you?" Liv said, pushing Sophie to lean forward in the chair. She ran her fingers over the metal plates that covered her spine.
Had to,
She coughed. Liv's touch made her spine tingle, or maybe that was the implant begging for more.
Sigrid was too fast, and toughened up by her berserk. I don't know if she's still alive or not. She was breathing after she went down, but we didn't check when we left.
Silence, again. We fought Freya. Mael broke the silence a second time. We saw her lying out there on the deck, Ares said. Is she...
Alive, Liv said. She's alive.
Alive, but devoured by the worm, Astrid said. Freya will never escape the shores of Naustrand. Cyberpsychosis, Mael explained when Ares' expression turned to confusion. He shifted against the wall, one hand still pressed to his ribs. Astrid looked away toward the windows, the morning sun casting her hair into flames.
Prosopon's out of the equation too,
Sophie said. She was desperately trying to change the subject away from their siblings who were either dead, dying, or drowning in the depths of psychosis, all thanks to her actions.
It wasn't itself, though, she continued. When I got into the data fort, it had fractured, split into 3 parts. They were all prosopon, had the same base code. They seemed of one mind, but not simultaneously. They had different tactics, different priorities.
Sounds like it was breaking, Liv said as she pressed the last strip of med foam onto Sophie's skin.
Or evolving,
Mael said.
Either way, it's a problem for another day,
Sophie said. She winced as she pulled her suit back on and covered it with her yukata.
It's cut off now. The Nagelfar has no functioning external access ports anymore. I'll figure out what to do with Prosopon when we make it out of here.
Sophie stood, shakily, from the chair. She was flushed, with dark circles under her eyes joining the even darker bruises. Most were covered by her suit, but one wrapped around her cheek where Sigrid had struck her. She felt like shit and was sure she looked much the same. Ares wrapped his arm around her, grasping her hip and pulling her close to his side, steadying her. Mael rose with Liv's help, leaning on the wall as he continued to clutch his side. Where to next? Ares asked. Astrid turned from the window, her gaze sharp despite the exhaustion in her posture. The faintest ember of that golden light still lingered in her eyes. To the heart of the beast, she said. We seek our mother who bore us into chains, the rot from which this sickness grows. Only when she falls will the serpent coil no longer around our throats. No one argued. The words needed no translation. Sophie straightened as best she could, drawing a slow breath. Her office is this way, Mael said, gesturing to a set of double doors at the back of the bridge. They opened to reveal a stairway leading to a long hallway. A second set of identical doors ended the hall. 2 doors on either side of the hall led to other rooms, on the way to Ursa's office. The air in the corridor was heavy. The weight of who, lay in wait for them, bearing down on their shoulders as they made their way slowly down the hall. Their footsteps echoed on the steel decking, each one a step closer to the end. Sophie kept her pace even, though every step sent pain shooting across the wounds hidden beneath her suit. Ares stayed close, his arm wrapped around her as if to remind her she wasn't going in alone. Liv walked on her other side, eyes scanning the hall with a tight, controlled readiness that meant she was just waiting for something to move. The first set of doors they passed stood ajar, revealing dark, unpowered crew quarters. The next set was sealed, the faint sound of humming machinery behind them. No one stopped to investigate. They were halfway down the hall when the double doors at the far end opened on their own. Midgard stepped out, the motion slow and deliberate, as if even that much effort weighed on him. His broad frame filled the corridor, armor plating scuffed and dented. The heavy rifle at his side held not in readiness, but in a loose, almost negligent grip. He let the doors slide shut behind him, cutting off whatever lay beyond. I've been watching you, you know.
keeping an eye on your progress. I was wondering if you'd make it this far, he said. His voice wasn't hostile, just worn, like a man who'd been standing too long in the rain. I'll be honest, I wasn't betting on your success. His gaze moved over them, lingering on Mael, then Astrid, before finally settling on Sophie. There was no heat in his eyes, no forgiveness either. I've seen what's in there, he said, nodding faintly to the doors behind him. Ursa, Mother, she's the root of it all. Always has been. But you, he hesitated, the words catching for a moment. You didn't just cut the roots, Sophie. You tore the whole damn tree out of the ground. Whatever balance we had, you burned it. The hall fell quiet. The hum of the ship's system seemed louder in the silence, an undercurrent to the weight of his words. They each moved to draw weapons, but Midgard dropped his rifle and raised his hands in surrender. In one hand he held a keycard, a black, plastic rectangle with a green stripe bearing Ursa's Valnut on the visible face. He dropped the card to the floor alongside the rifle. My world is burning down around me. I don't care to fight you over the ashes. Midgard, Einar, slowly began to walk away from Ursa's office doors. Take the key and do what you will. You won't find what you're looking for in there. He didn't wait for a response, pushing through the group, hands still raised, and slowly walking toward the bridge. Einar, wait! Sophie called out behind him. No. He didn't stop. He didn't look back. I'm leaving. I'm going to take Freya and get her off this ship, somewhere she can heal, if that's even possible. Somewhere far, far away from all this. He slowed for a half a heartbeat, just long enough to throw the next words over his shoulder. I don't ever want to see you again. Any of you. If we cross paths after today, we'll be enemies. He took another step, then added, his voice lower, colder. Astrid put it best. This family, it's a serpent, coiled around me since the day I was born. I'm cutting myself free before it drags me under with the rest of you. Without another word, he kept walking, boots echoing down the corridor until the sound faded into the hum of the ship, and their eldest brother was gone. Sophie stood frozen, the words sinking like lead into her chest. She thought of the coils Astrid had spoken of, tightening, suffocating, inevitable. For a moment, she wondered if Einar was right, if she'd traded one set of chains for another. But then her jaw set, her breathing evened out. If they didn't stop Ursa, they would all be swallowed, whether by the serpent or the worm. And Sophie refused to let either be her end.